He was born broken, cast aside before he even had a chance to live. Sheer weakness marked him for death. But then, a homeless boy with nothing of his own did something no one expected. What followed was a bond so powerful, it stunned everyone who witnessed it. The night was quiet, broken only by the soft whimper of a newborn puppy. He was small, fragile, and different. One of his back legs was twisted, making his movements weak and unsteady. To the world that birthed him, this tiny flaw made him worthless. His mother licked him once, but the hands that owned her decided otherwise. Roughly, the puppy was separated from his siblings and placed on the cold ground outside. The others were carried away, welcomed, but he was left behind, too broken, too weak, destined to be forgotten. The air was cold, and the earth felt merciless beneath his trembling body. He tried to crawl, but each movement brought pain. His cries were soft, desperate pleas no one cared to hear. To those who abandoned him, he was just a burden. Yet in that fragile body beat a heart that refused to stop. On the other side of town, a young boy wandered the streets with no home to return to. His clothes were torn, his shoes worn thin, and his stomach often ached from hunger. Yet his eyes carried something rare, an unbroken spark of resilience. Life had taken much, but not his will to endure. He had learned to survive on scraps, sharing smiles with strangers in hopes of a coin or a half-eaten sandwich. Nights were the hardest. The cold pressed against his small body as he curled beneath old wooden porches or abandoned shacks, whispering promises to himself that tomorrow would be better. Still, loneliness was his greatest burden. He longed for warmth, for someone to see him, to care. Each day he carried this quiet ache like a shadow. Little did he know, fate was about to place another forgotten soul in his path, one who needed him as much as he needed them. The boy's bare feet crunched softly against the dirt road as the sun began to set, painting the sky in fading hues of orange. His stomach growled, but his eyes were searching for something else, an empty bottle to trade, a scrap of bread, anything to get him through the night. That's when he heard it. A faint, broken whimper carried by the wind. He froze, tilting his head, listening closely. The sound came again, weak but desperate. Following the cries, he stumbled upon a sight that made him pause. A tiny puppy lying in the dust, trembling, its back leg wrapped awkwardly beneath its body. The boy knelt, his heart tightening at the sight of the animal's pain. For a moment, they just stared at each other, two abandoned souls, both unwanted, both broken in different ways. Slowly, the boy reached out his hand. The puppy, instead of retreating, dragged itself closer. That fragile step forward was the beginning of something neither of them had ever known before. Hope. The boy hesitated, staring at the puppy's frail body. His own stomach twisted with hunger, his clothes barely shielding him from the nights. Chill. He had so little, less than most, but when he looked into those frightened eyes, he saw himself reflected. He couldn't walk away. Not this time. Carefully, he scooped the puppy into his arms. The little creature whimpered, then nestled into the boy's chest as though it had finally found safety. The boy smiled faintly, whispering, "It's okay. I've got you." His words carried no certainty, yet the promise felt real in that moment. That night, instead of keeping the bread crust he had begged for, he tore it in half and placed a piece before the puppy. He curled around the tiny body, sharing his warmth against the biting wind. For the first time in a long while, the boy didn't feel completely alone. Two broken lives had found each other, and together, they had taken the first step toward healing. Days blurred into nights, and the boy and puppy became inseparable. The streets were merciless, offering little shelter and even less kindness. Strangers often looked at them with pity, or worse, with disdain. Yet the boy shielded the puppy from cruel stares and shouts, tucking him close whenever danger drew near. Food was scarce. Many nights, the boy went hungry, saving scraps for the puppy, watching the little creature's strength slowly return. Though his leg remained weak, the puppy's spirit grew brighter. He wagged his tail at the boys, every word, following him with unshakable devotion, as if promising never to abandon him. The cold winds of winter tested them most. The boy wrapped the puppy inside his thin jacket, pressing him against his chest as he shivered under torn blankets. Survival was a battle, but neither surrendered. What bound them together was stronger than hunger or cold. It was loyalty, the kind forged only in shared suffering. One evening, as the boy sat huddled beneath an awning with the lame puppy cradled in his arms, a passerby slowed his steps. Most people walked past without a second glance, but this man stopped, drawn by the sight of a child sharing his last piece of bread with a crippled dog. The boy whispered softly to the puppy, stroking its head as if it were the most precious thing in the world. The stranger watched silently, struck by the raw loyalty in their bond. Despite his empty pockets and torn shoes, the boy gave everything he had to keep the puppy alive. Moved, the man knelt down. "Son, where's your family?" The boy lowered his eyes, clutching the dog tighter, saying nothing. But his silence spoke volumes. The puppy shifted, letting out a soft whimper, as if answering for him. The man's chest tightened. He knew then he couldn't walk away. Something about this fragile pair demanded intervention. Fate had finally noticed them. The man returned. The next day, carrying a small bundle of food and a blanket. At first, the boy hesitated, unsure if he could trust such kindness. But when the stranger knelt and placed the bread in his hands, then set a piece aside for the puppy, the boy's eyes filled with tears. No one had ever done that before. Days turned into weeks, and the man continued to visit. He arranged for the puppy to see a veterinarian, who cleaned his wounds and fitted a small brace for his weak leg. Slowly, the little dog stood taller, his once fragile body growing stronger. His tail wagged proudly with every step, no longer the hopeless creature left to die. For the boy, change came too. The man helped him find shelter and warm meals, offering a chance to leave the streets behind. But through it all, the boy never let the puppy out of his sight. They had saved each other once, and neither intended to ever let go again. Months later, the transformation was undeniable. The boy, once frail and hungry, now stood taller, his cheeks full of color, his eyes brighter. By his side, the puppy, still with a slight limp, bounded with renewed energy, his bark cheerful, his spirit unbroken. Together, they had overcome the darkness that once defined them. One afternoon, the man who had helped them brought the pair to a community center. People gathered, curious about the story of a homeless child and a crippled dog who had found each other in the streets. The boy stood nervously, clutching the leash, while the puppy wagged his tail, basking in the warmth of attention. When the boy spoke, his voice trembled but carried truth. "Everyone else left him, but I couldn't, because I knew how that felt." The room fell silent, many wiping tears. The little dog pressed against the boy's leg, as if affirming every word. Their bond, born of pain and abandonment, had become a living testament of loyalty and hope. Once forgotten, they were now celebrated, not because they were perfect, but because they had refused to give up on each other.